right. Well, we are live. Taylor, let me know. Sound good? Sound all right? See in the comments here in the chat. Make sure I'm loud enough. Well, for those of you who had the first day of school today, I know there were a few of you. Hopefully it went well. I know both my parents are teachers, so I wished them good luck last night, and then haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming that no news is good news. Marcia, thank you for letting me know. Okay. Well, I think we'll go ahead and roll right into it. Got quite a bit of stuff to cover, and then we'll have some time for a Q&A at the end. But I want to welcome you back to the start of the 2025-26 school year. My name is Nathan Ladoff. If you don't know me, I am now the Director of School Success and Support. So throughout the year, I'm going to be doing a lot of these, at least a webinar a month to help kind of encourage schools and talk about new topics. And then throughout the school year, going to be connecting with teachers and with you throughout the school year to help improve your programs with our product through Striv Education. So kickstart your year, though. What we're going to be talking about here is setting goals and then building your student team as the year begins. So I want to start with a quote. Actually, I found this morning. It's called the Full Focus Planner. And so it was the quote of the day today. So I thought it was fitting to add it to this. But everything happens for a reason, and we learn an enormous amount with every decision along the way. So just to help kind of the mindset here at the beginning of the year that in your digital media class, in your broadcasting program, things are going to happen. Some things are going to be great. Other things might be disappointing that it turned out that way. A deadline might be missed. Things happen. The good news is this is high school. We're dealing with high school kids, and so it's okay. We adjust, we learn, and then we make a different decision next time if that's necessary, but we overcome, right? So that's kind of been my mindset here as we're preparing for the school year is things are going to happen, but how can we adjust and work accordingly to get the best outcome in the classroom and to impact students in the best way. So a little rundown of what we're going to go through, a little welcome back, why what we're doing matters. I always think having that in mind as we go through is an important thing as we start the year. We'll talk about building your team. We'll talk about setting goals, some of the common challenges that, classrooms and teachers come across, and even talk about some of the next steps that you can take, right? And I don't want to leave this webinar without leaving you as a teacher with something that you can go and execute on. So welcome back. So your classroom might maybe look a little something like this. If you're a digital media teacher, you have a computer lab, but it's kids. They're not probably quite yet into projects, but they want to get there, right? And so if this is what your classroom looks like, awesome. I love engaged kids. And in this picture, this is Rob Goff's class in Kearney. And his students, each one looks like they've got a project that they're working on, and they're on a roll, right? So they're head down doing their work, and that's all because of the classroom structure that's been set up. And so that's part of this is setting that up. So you're looking at this and you're like, man, didn't know that we were gonna go through kind of a study here, but I found this very interesting digital media trends report. Deloitte Insights did it at March here of this year. And I just kind of wanted to break down some of the statistics about how much time Gen Z spends, on their devices. So it's at least almost 7 hours on average, which is a lot of time. And if you look at where they're spending it, a lot of it's being spent on social media and then watching TV shows and movies, but on a streaming platform, right? So they're either watching on Netflix or Hulu, maybe Disney Plus, or I could go through and list all of them. There's a lot of them and a lot of subscriptions that people have to pay for. But that's where kids are spending, at least in Gen Z, a lot of their time according to the study. And so how can we use that information as teachers of digital media and broadcast to help educate these students? Well, we can teach them how to create the content that they're consuming, right? So that's part of why I bring up this chart. You can see this kid at this school, they started a podcast because they listened to a lot of podcasts. So it was something they were passionate about and they wanted to do. And so, your program as we're building it has the potential to be the voice in your community and of your community for sports, for what happens at school, for what happens specifically in the classrooms. Like, hey, this class is doing this really cool project. Let the community know. And so that's the stuff that your students are going to find valuable to promote. But to be successful in that, it takes intentional planning from day one. And so we're going to go through that. But right now, with this chart still in mind, I want to know in the comments if you consume more video content on your phone or on a TV. I want to know the breakdown. I know I personally consume a lot more on my phone because it's so easy. It's just right next to me all the time. And I jokingly tell people I have a really nice 55-inch TV in my basement that really only gets turned on if there's a Husker football Saturday. Like, that's it. Like, that's the only time I use it. So definitely not in the TV group, but we're working our way there. This next chart that I wanted to bring up just real shortly is what device people are using when they are watching this stuff, right? So they, again, same study, and you could see that 66% of TV shows and movies are watched on smart TVs, while short form videos, long form videos, scrolling on social media, that becomes more on the mobile phone and the tablet. Why is this important? The thing to think about is, as people are scrolling on social media, if you're, trying to promote your broadcast, your goal is to try to get people from scrolling on social media, seeing the post, to watching the live stream on their smart TV or on their phone. You've got to get them to click, right? And so that's an important thing. When people are watching long form videos, short form videos, you got to think about, like, when you're creating this content for the resolution and the size, if people are going to be watching it on a mobile phone, you have to play that into consideration with the type of content you create. And so I just always think it's interesting to look through these studies that people are doing and the reports and see where a lot of attention is at. And right now, a lot of it is making things more convenient for people to watch on mobile. And it's a lot of long form social media, short form stuff. So if your kids have interest in that, that's kind of to help you with some of the research that has been done. So here's kind of the roadmap when I think about, the overall topic, right? We got the research out of the way, the overall topic of building your student team. And the first thing to set up is the structure of your team, what that's going to look like. Then defining clarity for the roles. Then we got to set goals, and then we've got to build a culture so that it sticks and it stays. And something that can be repeated year over year. And that's the really successful part. Got a couple things here in the comment. Awesome to see. TV watcher, lots of TV, ESPN, good stuff like that. So when we think about teams, I've included a couple pictures that we have of some of our broadcast teams. So the team here on the right, that is Marcus Shear's crew from Johnson County Central. And they do a lot of great work. They're always with us at state basketball doing broadcasts, and we've got some more on them here later in the slideshow here. But all different kinds, mix and match of people. The little guy, John, he's the announcer, right? So he takes care of those duties, and the rest of them kind of filter around and do what they can to help. And so, sometimes you'll look up, and I'll look at different classes and how they're structured, and I'll look at the makeup of students, and I'll be like, okay, this is really cool because they're all super unique. Not every class looks the same, and they have their mix and their match of highly technical kids and highly creative kids. And then somewhere in the middle, there's those slightly technical and slightly creative kids who I think are the secret weapons for broadcast and digital media, because they know just enough to be dangerous, and they're just creative enough to create some really cool stuff. And so as you're looking at your team and trying to determine who, for a lot of us, if you have it as a class, you're dealing with kids who signed up for the class. So you're stuck there, and that's what you got to use. And then, on the other hand, if you're a club, again, we're thinking about getting people to be in certain kind of groups, but then help them expand outside of their group. I saw Taylor had a hand raised. Go for it.
Can I talk?
You can.
Okay, cool. I wanted to bring up Tara, who is actually on. She, I think, asked you a question via email today about struggling with do I have kids specialize? I know we've always talked about letting kids try all different things. What do you think, Hoosier, is the line of letting kids specialize in something on a broadcast and then letting them try a bunch of different things? What is your perspective on that? And that may help answer that question for Tara too.
Yeah, I have a slide on that in a little bit, which is okay, but we can kind of dive into it now a little bit as well.
I guess I didn't look at your slides well enough.
That's
my
okay.
fault. Yeah, go
That's
ahead
all
and
right.
answer it later.
Yeah. Well, we'll answer it in more detail later, but yes, make kids do different roles. So here's what I want to take some time to think about. This question, who is that one student? The surrounding idea behind asking this question is, who can you find to kind of take a student leadership role in your class, right? Who is that student who, they know a little bit about photography, they know a little bit about videography, they love organizing projects, and they can think of all the things that need to get done. Who are some of those, stronger organizational skilled kids that might be a junior or senior in your class, and how can you empower them as the teacher, while in turn giving them, trust and, things to have to manage, but it's also taking stuff off your plate as a teacher, and it's making your life easier because the student has the responsibility and, hey, this kid is in charge of making sure all the broadcast gear gets set up the right way. That's one less thing for you to do on game day. This student's responsible for making sure all the photos that we took for yearbook are organized. That's something that you no longer have to make sure gets done because they've accepted responsibility for that. So as you go through and think about your one student, maybe they're in student council, but not on sports. They've shown leadership in other areas. Start looking at those kids and have them do some peer-to-peer mentoring as well. And that can really make the classroom kind of thrive and take a little bit off your plate as the teacher, which is perfectly acceptable in my opinion. So one of the next things that I want to do is talk about defining roles and responsibilities and why it's important, right? So what you see on the right hand here is a copy, one of the pages that we have included in our student broadcasting playbook. So if you have our broadcast education, you have access to this document. And the reason to have a document like this is to clear up what roles there are, who's in those roles, and the responsibilities that are in those roles, right? For broadcast, it could be very good at preventing chaos on game day. Instead of being like, we're 10 minutes out from the game starting and who was supposed to do this, you have it assigned and you've got it clear. For your journalism class or digital media, this is the person who usually does the editing. This is the person who usually does the, taking pictures. And again, every class is going to look a little different, but those are some generalized ideas. And so, we look at like for the producer of a broadcast, pre-planning is the day before, the day of like, what do we want to talk about in the broadcast? What are some things that we can maybe make graphics for ahead of time and get some of that pre-work done? Hey, it's almost game time. Is everything working? Here's my responsibilities in game, and here's my responsibilities after the game. Especially if you're a teacher who cannot always be at the broadcast, if you've got kids that you trust enough, you can put in these roles and responsibilities, and then they know what they're supposed to do. I think the other big thing is with clearly defined roles and responsibilities, kids can then become interchangeable. If you make this a document that you've got the guidelines and everyone can see it, let's say a kid's never ran camera before, you put them in front of this document, you say, read through your responsibilities, ask me any questions after the fact, but then it's the same. No matter what person is in that camera spot, they've got the same role and the same responsibilities every single time. And so that can make the challenge of putting an inexperienced kid or someone who's, fresh into running a camera, that can kind of help take away the kind of the scariness of putting a kid in that role for game night, right? So I think the other big thing is when students know where they fit and what's expected of them and how they contribute to the bigger picture, they will buy in a lot more, right? When you get students to understand, like, hey, I'm running camera 3 and I'm getting these type of shots for this reason. I am important. I am necessary to this operation. They'll show up with a lot more enthusiasm and a lot more joy while doing the work that they do. Same thing on the digital media side. When kids are like, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to go down to, this 5th grade classroom because they're doing a cool experiment. And my job is to capture it and share it with everyone else, on the school social media pages. That's empowering for these students to understand their role in the bigger picture. And so that's why documents like this I love, because it makes it really clear and it allows people to be interchangeable as long as they're good at following instructions. Some kids are better than others in that, but for the most part, they're pretty good at following instructions. And again,
and Hoosier, can I just interrupt? Can you let people know where this is located at if you are a Striv Education school?
Yep. So if you're a Striv Education school, this is part of the student broadcast playbook. So in the Future Ready Educators community, you've got your broadcast education tab. There's the student broadcast playbook. And then there is a section called roles and responsibilities. I mean, word for word right there. So that's where this lives. And again, there's more pages of it. And then if you teach both broadcasting and digital media, you can think about this not only applying to broadcast specifically, but how you can morph it to fit the needs and the roles that you have in your digital media class. Then the next thing that I want to talk about here is setting goals, right? So I've just thrown up some examples here. They're not specific, but what are some things that you can set with your students in the first couple weeks of like, here's what we want to accomplish this semester. So we were just down in Nashville getting some of the metro schools set up with broadcast systems. And one of the big topics we talked about down there was what should the goal be for this year? And so they've not ever broadcasted anything. And so one of the things was like, what if we just commit to broadcasting a specific sport? Or what if we commit to broadcasting 10 games, this year, right? Or however many, they have availability to, or they don't want to do all of them. But that's the goal. So then they know what to work towards, right? If you have kids who are really passionate about reporting on stuff that's going on at school and they want to do a weekly news show, set that as the goal. And then what has to go into that goal to, be attached to that. Taylor put in the comments, very good note, start small. That's also very important. And so some of these numbers, might seem high, but, and if you're wanting to get more ad revenue into your program and you've got the green light to go create ads or videos for the community businesses, set a goal of how many you want to make and then decide what would be, if you limit it to 3, there's probably more than 3 businesses that would be willing to do it. And so then you get to become a little bit more selective of maybe what's going to be easier to actually pull off. So things like that. But again, goals should be visible. I would recommend every school has whiteboards. If you get semester long goals, in the top left or top right corner, right, here's our goals, and list them out so that every day the kids walk into class, again, it's that part of that ownership and responsibility. They know the greater mission that they're working towards, those greater goals to get them where they want to go. And when they're sitting in class being like, man, why do I have to learn how to do this thing in video editing? Or why do I have to learn about, the exposure triangle for taking photos manually? Well, they can see like, hey, we're learning these skills and they're going to be used in these greater projects that are our goals. right? And so I always think about that of keeping them visible, making sure they can be tracked, and making sure students feel ownership and responsibility around these, these goals that you've set. They're kind of like SMART goals, which are what? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. I think I got that right. Taylor, give me a nod. Was I right? Was I close? Spot on. That was off the top of my head. It means I've learned something in some of the books I've read. So when you think about setting goals, these are the things to do and to keep your students motivated and engaged. Okay. I love whiteboards. I need more whiteboards in my room here at my house where I'm working from, because I love whiteboards. This is, and unfortunately, I don't think he was able to join us today, but this is the whiteboard in the McCool Junction classroom. The teacher there is Trey Perry, and first of all, he's an awesome teacher. We've done an interview with him that's on our YouTube channel that maybe Taylor can put the link to. Again, just an all-around great guy. He's got a journalism background, so he gets it when he's teaching digital media classes. And so this first picture is part of the way that he organizes his class. So going from, the top across, that's the week, in a macro view, right? So they've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all across there for what events are happening this week, right? So this was in September that I visited the class and took the photo. They had, different football games. They had volleyball. They had math counts competition on Tuesday. They were really excited that they were getting orange chicken for lunch on Thursday. Even things like that, just a mood booster in class for what's for lunch. And so that's a way that at a glance during the week, students can be like, do we have a game tonight? And they can look up to the whiteboard and be like, yes. So I should be checking if I have anything due for that event. And then here below, this, I'm trying to remember, and I feel bad because if Trey was on this call, I'd ask him to comment about it. But this is either their yearbook or it's what they call like their Mustang Roundup, like their weekly newspaper. And so either way, the same idea. It might be their Mustang Roundup that they do kind of on a once a month or weekly basis. But as you can see, we need something on homecoming week. Okay, Mackenzie's working on it. Mustang Roundup, Grace has got that. Isabel's working on something for the new daycare owner. Millie is doing an elementary interview and an update, right? Trey Perry is doing something about the 9/11 Remember. Isaac and Cameron, I think, are working on Senior Spotlight. So everyone's being assigned.
I think they need help. Help me.
Somebody needs help, yeah, for the seniors. When I keep looking at this picture, I'm like, man, somebody really needed help. But everybody knows their roles and they're all assigned certain things. And so part of that clear communication is making sure we're very specific on who's responsible for what. Now, whiteboards are fun. I also love spreadsheets. And so hopefully this is somewhat visible. I'm going to look off to my other screen so I can see a little bit larger here. But what we have here is the date of the event, the title of the event, what sport or activity it is, if it has an opponent, the location of it, the start time, and then check boxes if it's going to be streamed, if there need to be yearbook pictures, or if there needs to be social media content created around it. We call this the production event planner. We designed it. It is part of our resources. If you have our broadcast education, in that resources and tools section, you can find it kind of in the same area that you found the student broadcast playbook. And you can make your own copy. You can put your own events in. The purpose behind this is to kind of have a master calendar view all at once. And so I personally don't recommend putting every single event in for the entire year. You will feel very overwhelmed. But, take it a sports season at a time. And so here you can see, color coded for the event. So basketball was orange. And so there was a strand of home games, or excuse me, these were away games versus they had like Lawrence Nelson, Meridian. And so you can see these away games, they needed someone to take yearbook pictures, but they didn't need to stream it because they were not home games. And so as kids look at it like, yeah, there's a game tonight, but if I'm just solely on the broadcast crew, I'm not needed to do anything, right? I can, take the night off, relax, do whatever. Conversely though, we got home basketball at McCool. They were playing Twin River. We need to stream and we need yearbook pictures. And so the beauty of this spreadsheet though lies in the automation and the formulas that we've put within it, right? When you check mark that it needs to be streamed, it then goes down to the streaming tab at the bottom. And within the streaming tab at the bottom, if you click into that tab, it then expands. It copies all of the information about the event. And then we put in custom tabs for the crew roles that are available for the broadcast. So then you can type in students' names, who's going to be producer, who's director, who's camera one, who's camera two, and who's play-by-play announcer. You can do that within the streaming tab, and only the events that need streamed will show up in the streaming tab of the Google Sheet. Same thing with yearbook pictures, only the ones that are selected, and it looks like for McCool, about every single event had yearbook pictures, which is awesome. If you've got kids who really love to take pictures, that's perfect, right? And so all of those events then go into the yearbook pictures, and from there, let's say you want to experiment with some video as well, just for some extra social content. You can assign someone to take photos, someone to take video. Or if you have two photographers, you can say, all right, here are my two people taking pictures. It's all about staying organized and clearing up a lot of the communication so that students know what they're doing, especially once the sports seasons start, right? Everybody starts out with super well-intentioned plans. And this has even, happened to me in my life. I start out super intentional about something, and then I get really, really busy, and stuff kind of doesn't always go to plan, right? But the more communication, the more documentation you can have around it, the better off you are, right? And so you can start to assign your students, a couple weeks out. That way, if they work a job, they can get, time off from that job, or make sure that they're not working that day. They can check schedules. If parents are still in charge of transporting them, they can make sure they've got a ride, or what. It's not just as simple as saying, you student got to help tonight. They've got stuff as well to do. So that's something to take in mind. Now, here's between this sheet and this whiteboard. This allowed Trey to go on paternity leave when he and his wife had a newborn child in the middle of the school year. So he was able to take a couple weeks, maybe a month off. I forget exactly how much time, but it was enough time where events were still happening and content still needed to be created. And so what he did, and we'll talk about this on the next slide a little bit too, is he had, from the beginning of the school year, developed his student leaders, right? So that's why I asked that question. Who is that one student? Who are a couple of those students? Someone who really takes charge of the broadcast side, someone who really takes charge of social media content, someone who really takes charge of yearbook. Who are those students? Because then when Trey wanted to spend time with his newborn child, which is a very valid reason and thing to do, he was able to, without a whole lot of stress and a whole lot of fear that everything was going to fall apart, right? And so part of what McCool does in class is they start every class off with a recap. And so the student leader, when Trey was gone, stood up for the streaming and said, hey, we've got this event. Everyone that's assigned, are you still okay to show up? Everyone clear on their roles. Everyone give verbal confirmation. Good. Broadcasting is taken care of. Hey, here's all the events that we're doing. You were supposed to interview this person. Do you need help with your questions? Do you need reviews? Stuff like that. And instead of making the substitute have to try to figure out how to teach the class, Trey had instilled in his kids enough of that leadership that they were able to kind of operate. Now, obviously, you still have to have an adult in the room because it's school, but they were able to operate without Trey very well. And so that's the benefit of having things like this. And I see Dawn. Yep, Dawn assigns a quarter at the time. That's awesome. That way they know ahead. And again, kids have lives outside of school, and some of these events, if they're not a sports person, like I grew up as a sports person, my dad's a coach. So for me, I never scheduled anything when I knew that there was a game, home or away. That was just the way that I operated. But not a lot of these kids operate that way. So got to realize they're trying to balance it too. So when I talk about building a strong culture, what do I mean by that? Well, one of the things that the idea behind it is to build something that you can repeat year over year, so that you're not necessarily starting from scratch every single year, right? Getting these systems in place and then getting the students to buy into the systems. And then you just use the same system year over year. You adjust a little bit at a time to really support the class and what you're doing. And so some of the ideas that I have behind building a strong culture, one of the things, and Taylor can attest, that we do as a team is we have weekly team meetings, right? And we always start off the team meeting asking the question, what was one personal and professional highlight from the last week? Now, for me, I can tell you next Monday when we have a meeting, this webinar is probably going to be my professional highlight because I've absolutely loved preparing for it and getting to talk about this idea with you guys. And then, I don't know, I watched a cool movie last night, so maybe that'll be mine, but the week's only half over, so there's a lot of time still left to figure out that answer. But when it comes to your students, sometimes you can get so busy, especially basketball season, it's game after game after game. If you have students taking photos, one of the questions that you could do is sit down in class at the beginning of the week and be like, hey, last week there was a lot of events. Go student by student. What was your favorite part? Hey, you took photos. What do you think was your best photo? What was a moment that stood out to you? Get them to reflect on the good things, right? Get them to focus on the wins that they had, because inevitably, because they're not professionals, there will be, some mistakes made, and that's okay. But if we can focus on the wins and the good stuff and help them continue to do more good, that's going to help build the culture around your class where the kids are super willing to come in and learn new things because it's going to make them better. And it's a level of self-reflection that's going to be super important to them as they continue down their career creating content, whether that is for a broadcast or whether that is social media, digital media, journalism type things. Again, to dig in a little bit more on Tara's question, to rotate roles. By the way, one quick side note, the benefit to RSVPing for these events is I will send you an email the day before, and that's your chance to, if you have a specific question on the topic, let me know. And if I can answer it ahead of time, or I can build it into the presentation still the day before, and that just guarantees that you get your question answered. So that's another benefit to RSVPing.
You also get points.
Yes, you do. You also get points in our.
If you RSVP, do you get more points if you actually attend? I don't know.
Not necessarily attending,
Okay.
but for doing the RSVP to the event, yes. As we work on our leaderboard and where everyone's ranked at, yeah, you definitely get more points for that as well. So, again, another reason, and send you a nice calendar invite. You're always reminded, you get updates, all of that, right? So, but Tara's question, again, to reiterate, was how or if kids should specialize in roles. My personal opinion, and this comes from being a high school student who did this. In high school, I spent most of my time broadcasting, doing play-by-play announcing. and that was fine. And I considered myself to be pretty good at it. Everyone in town thought I was pretty good. I was by no means bad. I wasn't, Greg Sharp or, these super great announcers level, but I got the job done. And I would always, I'd look at our stream and the kid running camera next to me, and sometimes it'd be shaky, and I'd be like, come on, dude, can't you just keep the camera steady? Well, then he was gone. I had to run camera for a game, and well, my camera was more shaky than his was. And so from that point on, I stopped. I was like, all right, you're good, dude. Like, you're doing your best, because it's tough for me to do. And so I can't cast the blame on you if I can't even do it myself, right? That would be hypocritical. So part of that is that empathy for the other students doing a job and not getting upset at them. But another thing is, it wasn't until I got into my first year of college and I started getting involved in less of my school broadcasts and more of Striv broadcasts with Eric. We'd go do state events and stuff like that, where I got the opportunity to start to run a floor camera and start to direct and produce and run replay, and these things that I never got the opportunity to do because I was always doing play-by-play. Well, come to find out, I actually love directing and producing way more than play-by-play broadcasting, and I do it way more often. I never got the opportunity to do that in high school just because I was always broadcasting and doing play-by-play. And that's nothing on, the scenario, the situation. That's just, as I look back, I wish that maybe I would have experimented a little bit more. So the whole point of me telling you this story is I would recommend that you force the kids to do different roles, because they might feel comfortable, but it might not be the thing that they actually really love to do. And they might find out that they try something else and they really, really love it. Right. And so that's always been, my whole stick about let them do other things. Go for it, Taylor.
Yeah. What if you also thought about it from this perspective? And I'm speaking to Tara as she's typing here. She can listen, and for everyone else that's watching too, that has students, because there's this issue going on of wanting consistent broadcasts or content, for that matter, on your social media. And so you gravitate toward the student that continues to do a good job, and you're like, hey, I want more of that. So for you, Hooj, it was, yeah, you are the only student that can do play-by-play, so we need you here. So what if we looked at it from this perspective and said, hey, rock star student, because that's what it is, could you train another student on how to do what you're doing really well, and so that we can integrate them? Because I think one of the issues we have is we lock into that kid, for that student, maybe for a couple of years, and that's all they do, and we don't have anyone else to come up and fill that spot, and so then the program drops off. So I think building a strong culture is about having those students who get really good at that thing, training the next group, or apprenticing that next student. And I think that's where we're really focused on, because we've both experienced that, Hoosier more recently, and me doing this over 10 years, is that we see programs going like this, or they lose a teacher and they've got to bring new teachers in, and culture is lost. How can we sustain that culture no matter who steps into that? Because there's an expectation and there's training, and we've got students who can step in and do that. I know that's easier said than done, but that's what you're here. That's why you're here on this, is to learn. And you can use us. We can help you. We can talk to students. We can talk to you, and we can coach you through that. We can provide the training, and that's where the certifications comes in too, with our broadcast education program. So if you pay for our services, we have lots of free stuff, but if you pay, you can actually have students go through a play-by-play certification, camera operator certification, and get that training so you can train other students. But also, I realize, because we've worked with hundreds of students coming through state events, sometimes the kid just isn't a great camera operator. Don't force it. So you got to use the resources and the students you have available at the end of the day. And fans want a great experience too. So you got to make that decision, which is tough. That's all I got. Rant over.
Yeah, no, very valid. I think another thing too to think about is, and we kind of had, I forget who exactly we were talking to, if it was me and Taylor talking to someone or just me by myself, but One of the ideas, along with peer-to-peer mentoring or kind of that apprenticeship style thing, is, you know, the same way that when you watch a varsity basketball game, you expect the players to be better than the JV team. You can also kind of do that when training new people. Like if there is a high expectation and you've got advertising on your varsity broadcast, and that's what they're really paying for, is that good varsity broadcast, that's fine. Put your rock stars there. But then when you do a JV game or you do a junior high game, then start to kind of rotate in those new people, because like Taylor said, we've seen it too many times where, you know, you start to run out of people who are able to kind of fill in that spot. And honestly, my favorite saying is, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none, but sometimes better than none. Like well-rounded kids, I believe, will have a better chance of success going into the career field because you don't get a choice right away. Like you're not going to be able to, like, yes, you can go to college and say, I want to specifically do this. But you're not going to get there right away. And you've got to try the other things. And you've got to start out as low man on the totem pole and work your way up. And so I think we need to kind of set that mindset in high school of, yes, this is fun, but we're trying to prepare you for the career. And the reality of it is that you've got to work your way up and you got to try different things. And so, you know, we set that expectation in sports. You know, we set that expectation everywhere else. So I think we should hold ourselves to that same expectation of standard in the broadcast. Is, yeah, you got to try a little bit of everything. You got to work your way up. So, yeah.
Hoosier, did you see Tara's question about dedicated person to download photos or setting up?
Yes.
Is that all year, or do you rotate that part too? Probably depends on availability.
Yeah, part of it depends on availability. As I was mentioning that thought, what I was envisioning in my head here, just kind of take you into the mind of Hoosier, which is a dangerous place to go if you're not prepared for it. But certain classrooms, like Trey's, where they're pumping out a lot of content, kind of having that dedicated person helps with the workflow to get from point A to point B. If you're doing, you know, small projects, and, you know, maybe you do one big project a month, that person can change, right? And so, you know, I'm thinking, like, if you have enough kids to do it and you're making a video and you have a kid who's just, you know, the shooter of the video, they're just the camera person, and you have a person who is solely being the video editor, then it should be on the shooter of the video to upload all the clips, label them, sort them. That way the video editor can go in and know, here's what I've got to work with. Same way for yearbook. If you've got a student who is just taking photos at the game and that's it, they should be responsible for going through their own photos, selecting which ones they liked, labeling them appropriately. That way when it's time to put the yearbook together, the person who's doing that can just go and search for the keywords and know that the good pictures are already picked out. So that was kind of the idea of the downloading of the photos being the same person who kind of shoots that, just because they've already got in their head what they thought was good. Now, don't have them just delete all the photos, because what they think is good, another person might think is not as great. So I'm a proponent of keeping everything, but at the same time, that was kind of the idea behind when I mentioned that for the student in the role. Yeah. And then encourage experimentation, right? So this is kind of the last thing to culture is got to kind of let the kids have fun a little bit within boundaries, right? Again, like I said, if you got a kid who's interested in starting a podcast and you've got the time in classroom instruction time to allow them to do that, and you've got the equipment, you know, let them try, let them experiment so they can learn. And I see it as, you know, give them the opportunity now, because you'll be doing them a huge favor. If you let them explore in high school, then by the time they're ready to go to college, they're not wasting a bunch of money trying to do something they thought they'd like to do that they don't actually like to do. And that's kind of my huge thing around letting them experiment a little bit, let them have a passion project, for a final in class. If you don't have anything, like, let them do something that, kind of they're leaning towards. And the way to find out where they're leaning, I think when you have those weekly meetings and you start hearing what they thought was cool and exciting, you'll start to see what they're really passionate about. And so, not to, keep beating on the same drum about this rotate skills and rotate roles, but maybe you spend the first portion of the year kind of rotating roles, and then once you figure out who's really good at what, then you let them settle down in. That's another option that you can employ in the classroom. You might not know who's really good at what, so kind of rotate them till everyone feels comfortable, and then you got your matchup. I mean, it's the same thing that coaches do with their football roster. They go through the first few weeks of practice, and they have a general idea of who's probably going to be a lineman and who's probably going to be good, but they might not know. And so they go through practice reps and they go through scenarios, and they're constantly changing things to try to get the best performance out of the team. And so what we as teachers are doing is we're trying to get the best performance out of the broadcast team while still giving the students an educational opportunity. So hopefully Taylor, given them like 3 different ways to kind of look at the way of rotating roles. But again, it depends on class structure, class size. There are some people who don't have enough kids to do this. There are some people who they've only got their 5 broadcast kids, and that's what they're going to have to roll with. There are others who are maybe a little bit more blessed who have, 20 kids to broadcast, and they're stuck on like, how do I fit everyone in and give them, the appropriate time and the appropriate experience, and kind of rotate through those teams. So, yeah. Culture is a big thing, and then just, again, making a system that can be repeatable. One last chart. I really loved this digital media trends. If you can't tell, I loved reading through it and finding it. This is something to encourage students as well, those students who are hesitant about being a kind of a personality or kind of putting their face out there, their name out there. This study showed, again, same trends report in March of this year, that people, specifically Gen Z, felt stronger personal connections to social media creators than they did to TV personalities and actors. I can back up that statistic. I have a lot closer connection, and I can tell you a lot more about the YouTubers, the people on YouTube that I watch, than I can tell you about, this, reporter or this anchor for this show. Like, part of it, I just don't watch TV, but this is where my attention's at. I edit for a YouTuber, and if you read the comments under her videos, you would think that there were 2,000 people who were her best friends. And I've talked to her, and she's like, I know none of them. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, social media has allowed this wide internet access to people. I mean, one of the favorite groups of people I watch on YouTube are from the United Kingdom. Like, they're not even in the US, and I watch their content all the time. I've never met them. I'll probably never get close to them, but I feel like I know a lot of details about their life. And so if you've got kids who are interested in that, and, have them start to work on these videos where they do put themselves out there, they do put their personality out there, because there's a large market for it, and it just keeps growing. And then the other side of the graph is that, social media content is more relevant to people than traditional content. And there's a big A word that causes that. It's called an algorithm. Because YouTube and social media platforms have an algorithm, you no longer are forced to watch whatever some big guy in a suit said would be good for programming. You get your own programming, which is the draw to social media platforms. And so by having your kids create content that they would watch helps you get into the right audiences, into the right algorithms of people creating social media content. So again, this graph, just to kind of hammer home the point, like, this stuff, like, working in digital media is a real job. There are real people making real money. And there's actually quite a lot of people making a lot of money. And so getting the students the right kind of start to this, journey in life of creating content is huge. Well, this is a fun picture. And Marcus actually just, so this is Marcus Shear at JCC. This is his production room. And actually he just posted on X earlier today. I saw Taylor respond to it. He's got his audio running over his network now. So it's a whole cool thing. We'll definitely do a deeper dive into this, but I show you this picture of Marcus's control room to say that Marcus didn't start like this. It was a one computer, one camera, and announcers in the bleachers like everyone else. But he started small, and he added one more thing, and he added another thing, and he had good funding, and he added another thing, and pretty soon he got to the setup that we see today, right? And so you might not have this goal in mind. It might not be attainable right now. But if you get a good plan and a good roadmap and you build the team, part of the reason I think that some schools are hesitant to buy into cool setups like this is they might think that they've got, one good year of students, but then they don't think that, the class size and what they're doing is repeatable. And that's why really the reason behind hammering culture and repeatability is because then this allows you to get stuff like this. When administrations know that you're going to be able to consistently have high quality broadcasts and students who are willing to actively participate and utilize this stuff, they're more willing to build a room or give you a room and let you buy this stuff and use some more of the school budget to promote the school. Like, that's part of the thing that made this feasible for Marcus is he's shown that year over year over year, his students have been able to pull off high quality things. And so when it came time to think about buying this and assigning a portion of a room to this, the administration gave the good old check mark and said, go for it, right? The green light. So, don't expect this from day one, but it is cool to see what kind of having a long-term vision and having students who are consistently involved, what that can do for you. So here are some of the common challenges. So we at Striv Education did a digital media trends report of our own. Was that a year and a half ago, Taylor, that we did that? And the three most common things that were brought up were funding, equipment, which kind of tied in with funding, and then skills. So what are some responses to those challenges? Funding. If you've got local sponsors, advertising is a great way to make that extra money. If you've got, if your school says, hey, we're not going to be able to really help you buy new equipment, try to do some fundraising or some gathering of funds of your own, advertising to build up those funds so that you can. Think about alumni. If you are a school here in Nebraska, and I think it's a federal grant, but Revision and Perkins, if you're not taking advantage of those, please do. She was actually my former principal in high school, Brandy Thompson. She's part of the ESU 7, and she did a really cool presentation at NCE Days. What was that? Back in the spring, or it was over the summer, I think. Anyway,
seems like it. That was in June, the Career Tech Education Conference.
Okay, that was June. If that gives you any indication of my summer, there you go. But she was talking about revision, and so I'm going to try to line up some content with her to kind of help you as a teacher. And of course, every area is a little bit different, but some of the general best practices so that you can take advantage of that money that is available to you through funding, right?
Yeah, this is CTE.
Yeah.
This is the funding that Metro Nashville Public Schools got to have us come in for training and to buy all their equipment was through a grant in Tennessee. So each state has it because it's hands-on learning. It's career-based, real world learning. So there's funding out there. You gotta work for it. And I think all the teachers on here have done a good job of being creative with that. But if you aren't familiar with that, we can definitely help you. So let us know how we can help you. And we can then help you with equipment through Striv AV, which I probably just stole from Hoosier there.
Well, that's all right. It sounds better when it comes from you. But yeah, no, and then equipment, again, think about starting with the essentials. You know, if you're a school that's never broadcasted, like don't hop into multicam right away. Maybe start a little slower, but you know, also the things to think about, if you're currently doing one camera and you want to go to 2 or 3, now you're adding in another switcher and more equipment. So just thinking about, you know, what you actually need to get to accomplish the goals that you have, and then what are some strategic upgrades. And like Taylor said, you can work with us with Striv AV. We have a lot of knowledge of the equipment that is available to accomplish the goals that you have in the class. And then skills. You know, we've talked about that peer-to-peer training. I think that's huge, is letting students learn from each other. You know, I do a form of that when I watch people make YouTube videos about stuff. Like that is a peer, someone that is doing something that I want to be doing, and I'm learning from them, right? And then offer certifications if you're in broadcasting. We have our own certifications that we've created. We've got our play-by-play. We've got our camera operator certification. We're working on our director certification and producer to have those available to students that are interested in developing their broadcast skills. As a teacher, what we have available to you on the digital media side is introduction to Canva course to go through. We've got Premiere Pro. We've got DaVinci Resolve for video editing software. So we've got some of these tutorials that you as a teacher can watch through too, to get a better understanding of the tools that your students are using. But then obviously, one of the best things to do is to reach out to us as well, because we want to help you, and we can help kind of come up with a custom game plan for your school, especially if you're a school that is working with us with our curriculum. That is part of the package deal when you sign up with us is that personalized coaching. And my job as director of school success is to make you successful and help get you what you need. So some quick responses to some of the common challenges that there are. And then I know we filled up that hour. That for me, it's gone pretty quick. I hope it's not felt overwhelming, but it is the beginning of the year, and I wanted to make sure that you guys got as much value as you could out of this. I wanted to respect your time, and we really filled up the hour. So the other thing, some actionable steps that you can now go forth and do great things. Somebody once said that. I can't remember who, and I wish I could. But within the next 2 weeks, kind of as school's getting started, as you start to get your class, start thinking about the roles that you're going to be able to fill. A lot of you probably already have your class roster, but as students are in class and you're kind of talking about different topics, like see which students seem more excited about different things in digital media. If you got some video kids, like kind of make a notation like, hey, this kid like is probably going to be more passionate about video projects. So if you have the opportunity to let them choose something, let them go that way. Start to do your roles and responsibilities paper, and start to create that so it's something that the entire class agrees upon. And then that's your guiding document for when somebody's like, what am I supposed to do as a camera person? You have that document, and you can be like, we agreed upon this at the beginning of the year. Here's what it is. Set 2 to 3 kind of clear production goals. You can either make them year long, or I'd recommend starting with kind of a semester goal of like, hey, by the end of the semester, here's 2 or 3 things we want to have accomplished. And again, that works for broadcasting or digital media. And then maybe plan your first culture building activity. Do something. You don't have to leave the school if you can't. Maybe do something in school. Do something kind of fun, something a little, I don't know. You don't necessarily have to make it viewable by the public, but kind of get class consensus on like what would be a really fun activity that employs the skills of digital media or broadcasting that they could do, and do a project like that, and just start to get get the students in your class to start working together like a team, because that's a big part of it is having them work together. And then the last slide, why we do this. I'm big on why, right? The mission, the vision, the values, because it drives people, right? And it's not kind of a psychology thing, but I want to let you guys know why we do this, because at the beginning of the year, when things are just beginning, it's not super tough, but maybe midway through the year, it begins to get a little tougher and you get busier and you're just like, man, why am I doing what I'm doing? Well, for me, I'm doing this for the kids I see on this screen that are getting opportunities that are absolutely incredible opportunities that, 10 years ago, I never would have envisioned, this, what I'm doing today and what these kids have gotten the opportunity to do. And I've been blessed over the last 3 years to get to meet a lot of unique individuals who have gone on to, as they're in college or they start their own solo careers, they're doing amazing things, right? And they're super engaged and they're super happy and they love it. And I've gotten to have a small impact on these students. I get to see them once, every couple months. But you as a teacher get to see them every single day in class. And the impact that you have on them is tremendous. If I personally think I've had an impact on them and I don't see them that frequently, you guys have a great impact. And so we do this to give these kids these learning opportunities so that hopefully they can find a career path and something that they love to do, so that when they graduate high school, they've got a plan. Again, these classes, these are CTE classes. They're not your core curriculum classes that you have to take. If students have signed up for your class, it's usually an optional class, and they're interested in it and they want to do it. And so as a teacher, and as me and Taylor to help you guys as teachers, we always have that in the forefront of our mind, is that it's the students who are getting impacted with this and are the beneficiaries of it. And then for me and Taylor, we want to help you as a teacher lighten the load a little bit, make things easier for you so that you can continue to do the very valuable work that you do, which is impacting and educating these students and giving them skills that they were going to use for the rest of their lives. I think I saw Nora's on this live stream, like, there's not a week that goes by that I don't think about something that, we did as a class project when I was a student. Like, it just always top of mind. And so those teachers, those principals that you have, that these kids have, they remember it. And I'm a few years removed, not a lot. But for me, it's still very top of mind about the impact and the fact that I am where I'm at today. And that's me now talking to you guys and hopefully encourage you guys with that. So Taylor, any last thoughts? We'll if you got any questions here, I know we're a little over time, but I appreciate everyone sticking with us. And basically what we'll do is I'll stay on here as long as people have questions. We'll try to answer those. But if not, feel free to reach out to me individually. I know everyone that I saw on this live stream, I know for sure that you guys have my email. And if not, you can send me a direct message in the community. And we're looking forward to a great year. I'm really excited. I don't know about you, Taylor, but all the work that we did over the summer to prepare for this it's here. We're doing it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's make it a great school year. We're here to support you throughout the school year, whether you work with us through one of our programs or you're just part of the community. We want to help you guys. So thank you very much. And hopefully this isn't the last time we see you on a training. Hoosiers got them all scheduled out for the whole semester. So if there's some different topics you guys want to dive into, we've got them all covered. If there's anything else you need, let us know. We're here to help you. So thanks, Hooj. Good job, bud. Thanks, everyone.